Lisa had always been the kind of person who kept her weekends busy. While her friends were sleeping in or binge-watching shows, she was up early every Saturday morning, driving to the Riverside Rehabilitation Center with a trunk full of books and art supplies. She had been volunteering there for almost 3 years, reading to patients and helping with simple craft projects. It wasn't glamorous work, but it filled her heart in a way her weekday job as a third-grade teacher never quite could. The rehabilitation center was a place where hope and heartbreak lived side by side. Lisa had seen patients take their first steps after months of struggle, and she had also watched families say goodbye to dreams they once held. She thought she understood the rhythm of this place, the stories that unfolded within its walls. She was wrong. It was a rainy Saturday morning in October when everything changed. Lisa was setting up her usual reading corner in the main activity room when she heard laughter coming from the physical therapy area. Not the polite, encouraging kind of laughter that often echoed through the halls, but genuine, belly-deep laughter that made her stop what she was doing and look around. The sound was coming from a man in a wheelchair, who was apparently telling a story to a small group of other patients. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that looked like he had run his fingers through it and a smile that seemed to light up the entire room. Lisa found herself moving closer, pretending to organize supplies on a nearby table, so she could listen. "So there I was," the man was saying, "hanging upside down from the scaffolding like some kind of construction worker superhero. Except I wasn't saving anyone. I was just trying to reach my lunch that had fallen off the platform." The group around him erupted in laughter again. My supervisor walks by, looks up at me and says, "Tom, what are you doing?" And I said, "Just hanging around, boss." You know how it is? Lisa couldn't help but smile. This Tom person had a way of telling stories that made even the most ordinary situations sound hilarious. She watched as he continued entertaining his audience, never once mentioning whatever had brought him to the rehabilitation center. He seemed so full of life, so completely present in the moment, that Lisa found herself wondering about his story. After the group dispersed, Lisa noticed Tom wheeling himself over to a table by the window where he pulled out a notebook and began writing. She tried not to stare, but there was something about his focus, the way he seemed completely absorbed in whatever he was putting down on paper, that intrigued her. "You're new," he said suddenly, looking up from his notebook. Lisa realized she had been standing there for several minutes, still holding the same stack of books. "Oh no, I've been volunteering here for 3 years, she said, feeling her cheeks warm. I heard you telling stories. You're really good at it." Tom closed his notebook and smiled. "Thanks, I'm Tom, by the way. And you're the book lady, right? I've seen you around, but never got a chance to introduce myself." "Lisa," she sighed, setting down her books. "Book lady works too, I guess. What brings you here every Saturday?" Tom asked, and Lisa was surprised by how genuinely interested he seemed in her answer. "I started coming after my grandfather had a stroke," she said. "He spent 2 months in a place like this, and I saw how much the volunteers meant to him. When he got better, I wanted to give back somehow." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "That's really nice. Not everyone thinks about giving back after they've been through something difficult." Lisa wanted to ask Tom about his own story, but something in his expression told her he wasn't ready to share that yet. Instead, she found herself asking, "What are you writing?" "Letters," Tom said simply. "I write a letter every day." "To who?" Tom paused, then smiled in a way that seemed almost shy. "To the future, I guess. To whoever needs to hear what I have to say someday." Lisa didn't understand what that meant, but something about the way he said it made her heart skip a little. There was a depth to this man that she hadn't expected, something that went far beyond his ability to make people laugh. Over the next few weeks, Lisa found herself looking forward to Saturdays in a way she never had before. Tom was always there, usually in the same corner by the window, writing in his notebook before joining whatever activity was happening that day. He had become something of a celebrity among the other patients and staff. Everyone seemed to know Tom, and everyone seemed to light up when he was around. Lisa began timing her breaks to coincide with Tom's writing sessions. She would sit at a nearby table, pretending to organize her materials while stealing glances at him. Sometimes he would look up and catch her watching, and they would exchange smiles that made Lisa feel like a teenager again. One Saturday, Tom surprised her by rolling over to her table. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked. "My usual spot is taken." Lisa looked over at his corner and saw two other patients playing cards there. "Of course," she said, quickly clearing space. Tom positioned his wheelchair across from her and opened his notebook. For a few minutes, they worked in comfortable silence. Lisa was helping a patient with a crossword puzzle while Tom wrote in his careful, measured handwriting. "Can I ask you something?" Tom said suddenly. Lisa looked up from the crossword. "Sure." "Do you ever feel like you're waiting for your real life to start?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" Tom set down his pen and looked out the window. "I mean, do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions, waiting for something to happen that will make everything make sense?" Lisa considered this. She thought about her small apartment, her routine at school, her quiet evenings watching television. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Why?" "I used to feel that way all the time," Tom said. "Even before I ended up here. I had this job, this life, but it never felt like it was really mine, you know? Like I was just filling in for someone else until they came back. And now?" Lisa asked. Tom smiled, and there was something different about this smile. It wasn't the cheerful, entertaining smile he wore for his audiences. This one was quieter, more real. "Now, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Lisa felt something shift inside her chest. "Even here? Even with ... She gestured vaguely, not sure how to finish the sentence. "Especially here," Tom said. "I know that sounds crazy, but being here, being forced to stop and really think about what matters, it's been the most honest time of my life." Lisa looked at this man who had somehow found peace in a place that most people would see as a symbol of loss, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt inspired. "What do you write about?" she asked. "In your letters?" Tom glanced down at his notebook. "Everything. What I learned today, what I'm afraid of, what I hope for. Sometimes I write about the people I meet." He looked up at her. "Sometimes I write about book ladies who give up their Saturdays to make other people's days a little brighter." Lisa felt her heart skip again. "You wrote about me? Would that be okay?" Tom asked, and Lisa realized he was actually nervous about her answer. "Yes," she said, and meant it completely. That was the beginning of something neither of them had expected. Over the following months, their Saturday conversations became the highlight of both their weeks. Lisa learned that Tom had been a construction worker who fell from a scaffold, that he had spent months angry and bitter before finding his way to acceptance. Tom learned that Lisa had always felt like she was meant for something more than her quiet life, but had never been brave enough to pursue it. They talked about books and dreams and the future. Tom shared some of his letters with Lisa, and she was amazed by his insight, his humor, and his complete honesty about his struggles and victories. Lisa found herself opening up to Tom in ways she never had with anyone else. When Tom finally asked Lisa to have coffee with him outside the rehabilitation center, she said yes without hesitation. When that coffee turned into dinner, and dinner turned into long walks through the park with Tom's wheelchair moving easily beside her, Lisa realized that she had found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. 6 months later, when Tom proposed to her in the hospital garden where they had shared their first cup of coffee, Lisa understood what he had meant about being exactly where he was supposed to be. She was exactly where she was supposed to be, too. The excitement of getting engaged lasted exactly 3 days. That's how long it took for Lisa's mother, Carol, to drive over to her apartment unannounced with a box of tissues and what she called some hard truths we need to discuss. Lisa was still floating on cloud 9 when she opened the door to find her mother standing there with that look on her face. The same look Carol had worn when Lisa announced she wanted to be a teacher instead of a lawyer, or when she moved out of the family home at 25. It was the look that said, "I love you, but you're making a terrible mistake." "We need to talk," Carol said, pushing past Lisa into the small living room. She set her purse down on the coffee table with more force than necessary and turned to face her daughter. About this engagement, Lisa's heart sank. She had hoped her parents would be happy for her, or at least supportive. "Mom, I know you're worried, but Tom is amazing. If you just got to know him." "Honey, sit down," Carol interrupted, patting the couch beside her. "I've been thinking about this for days, and I need you to really listen to what I'm about to say." Lisa remained standing. "If you're going to tell me not to marry him because he's in a wheelchair, this isn't about the wheelchair," Carol said quickly, though Lisa could tell it absolutely was. "This is about your future, your children's future. Have you really thought about what this means?" "Of course I have," Lisa said, though even as she said it, she wondered if that was entirely true. She and Tom had talked about their future, but maybe not about all the practical details her mother was obviously concerned about. Carol pulled out a folded piece of paper from her purse. "I did some research," she said, and Lisa's stomach dropped. "Do you know how much medical equipment costs? How much home modifications cost? What if he gets sick? What if you want to travel? What if you have children and they ask why Daddy can't play soccer with them?" Each question hit Lisa like a small punch. Not because she hadn't thought about these things, but because she realized she had been thinking about them with her heart instead of her head. "Mom, people with disabilities have families all the time. They travel, they have careers. I'm not saying they don't," Carol said, her voice softening. "I'm saying you're 28 years old, you're beautiful, you're smart, and you have your whole life ahead of you. Are you sure you want to limit yourself like this?" The word limit hung in the air between them. Lisa felt tears starting to form. "Tom doesn't limit me. He makes me feel like I can do anything." "Right now he does," Carol said gently. "But honey, love doesn't pay medical bills. Love doesn't make stairs disappear. Love doesn't change the fact that you'll be a caregiver for the rest of your life." After her mother left, Lisa sat on her couch for a long time, staring at the engagement ring on her finger. It wasn't expensive or flashy, but Tom had saved for months to buy it. He had told her he wanted her to have something beautiful to remind her every day that someone loved her completely. Now, looking at the ring, all Lisa could think about were her mother's questions. What if Tom got sick? What if they couldn't afford the medical expenses? What if she really would spend her life as a caregiver instead of a wife? The doubts got worse over the next few weeks. Lisa's sister called to express her concerns. Her best friend from college sent a long text message about rushing into things. Even her principal at school, Mrs. Henderson, pulled her aside one day to ask if she was sure about this big step. But the worst part wasn't what other people were saying. The worst part was that Lisa started noticing things she hadn't paid attention to before, like how Tom sometimes struggled to reach things in stores, or how he had to plan every outing around wheelchair accessibility. She found herself watching other couples and wondering what it would be like to dance at their wedding, or to go hiking together, or to chase their future children around the playground. Tom noticed the change in her immediately. He was too perceptive not to. One evening, as they sat in his apartment having dinner, he set down his fork and looked at her directly. "What's going on?" he asked. "You've been different for weeks," Lisa tried to smile. "I'm fine. Just busy with wedding planning." "Lisa," Tom said quietly, "talk to me. What's wrong?" The kindness in his voice broke something open inside her. "Everyone thinks I'm making a mistake," she said, the words tumbling out. "My mom, my sister, my friends. They keep asking me if I've really thought about what I'm getting into." Tom was quiet for a long moment. "And have you?" Lisa looked up at him, surprised by the question. "What do you mean?" "I mean, have you really thought about what you're getting into? Because they're not entirely wrong, you know." Lisa felt her heart skip. "What are you saying?" Tom reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm saying that loving me isn't going to be the same as loving someone else. There are going to be challenges we'll have to face that other couples don't. There are going to be times when my disability affects both of us, not just me." Lisa felt tears starting to form. "Are you trying to talk me out of marrying you?" "No," Tom said firmly. "I'm trying to make sure you're marrying me for the right reasons. I need to know that you're not marrying me because you feel sorry for me, or because you think you can save me, or because you've convinced yourself that love conquers all. Then why should I marry you? Lisa asked and immediately regretted how harsh it sounded. Tom smiled, but it was a sad smile. You should marry me because you can't imagine your life without me in it. You should marry me because when you think about growing old, you want to grow old with me. You should marry me because I make you laugh and you make me want to be better than I am, and because together we're stronger than we are apart. Lisa felt the tears spilling over now. But what if everyone's right? What if I can't handle it? Then we'll figure it out together, Tom said simply. That's what marriage is, isn't it? Figuring things out together? That weekend, Tom suggested they spend a day doing everything the way they would have to do it as a married couple. They went grocery shopping, with Lisa pushing the cart while Tom reached for items on lower shelves and asked store employees for help with higher ones. They went to a movie and had to sit in the designated wheelchair section. They went to dinner at a restaurant that turned out not to be fully accessible, so they had to find somewhere else to eat. By the end of the day, Lisa was exhausted. Not physically, but emotionally. She had watched Tom navigate a world that wasn't built for him with patience and grace, but she had also seen how much extra planning and energy it required. How was that for you? Tom asked as they sat in his apartment that evening. Lisa considered lying, but she knew Tom would see right through it. Harder than I expected, she admitted. Not bad, just harder, Tom nodded. It gets easier when you're used to it. But it never gets completely easy. Are you trying to scare me away? Lisa asked. I'm trying to make sure you know what you're choosing, Tom said. Because once we're married, I need to know that you're all in. I can't spend my life wondering if you're going to regret it. Lisa looked at this man who was being completely honest with her about the challenges they would face, who was giving her every opportunity to walk away, who was putting her happiness ahead of his own fear of being alone. She thought about her mother's concerns, her friends' doubts, all the practical problems they would have to solve. Then she thought about how Tom made her laugh every single day, how he listened to her, really listen when she talked about her students or her dreams, how he had shown her that strength wasn't about what your body could do, but about how you chose to face whatever life gave you. I'm all in, she said, and for the first time in weeks, she meant it completely. Tom's face lit up with relief and joy. Even after today, even knowing it won't always be easy? Especially after today, Lisa said, because I got to see how we work together when things are challenging. And we work pretty well. The next day, Lisa called her mother. I'm marrying Tom, she said before Carol could say hello. I know you're worried, and I know you love me, but I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. There was a long pause. Then Carol sighed. If you're sure about this, then I'll support you. But I still think you should see a counselor together before the wedding. We already decided to do that, Lisa said, which wasn't entirely true, but became true the moment she said it. The counseling sessions were eye-opening. They talked about everything from finances to family planning to career goals. They discussed Tom's medical needs and Lisa's concerns about being a caregiver. They created plans for the challenges they might face and talked about how to maintain their relationship when life got difficult. Most importantly, they talked about why they wanted to be married at all. Not just why they loved each other, but what they hoped to build together. We're not just planning a wedding, Tom said after one particularly intense session. We're planning a whole life, Lisa squeezed his hand. I can't wait to start living it. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the small bridal suite at St. Mary's Church, casting everything in a golden glow. Lisa sat in front of the mirror while her sister Katie carefully pinned the last few flowers into her hair. The dress she wore had belonged to her grandmother, a simple but elegant cream-colored gown that had been carefully altered to fit her perfectly. You look beautiful, Katie said softly, stepping back to admire her work. Grandma would have loved seeing you wear this. Lisa touched the pearl necklace at her throat, another family heirloom. I wish she could be here, she whispered, feeling a mix of joy and sadness that seemed to be the theme of the entire morning, through the window. Lisa could see guests beginning to arrive. Cars were pulling into the parking lot, and people in their Sunday best were making their way toward the church entrance. Some faces she recognized immediately, others she had only met once or twice. What struck her most was how many people had come. Not just for her, but for Tom too. Her mother appeared in the doorway, already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Oh, honey," Carol said, her voice thick with emotion. "You look absolutely radiant." Lisa turned to face her mother, searching her face for any signs of the worry and doubt that had colored their conversations over the past few months. Instead, she saw something she hadn't expected: peace. "Mom, are you okay?" Lisa asked. Carol sat down on the small couch and patted the spot beside her. "I had a long talk with Tom yesterday," she said. "Did you know he called me and asked if we could speak privately?" Lisa shook her head, surprised. Tom hadn't mentioned anything about talking to her mother. "He thanked me for being concerned about you," Carol continued. "He said he appreciated that I was looking out for your happiness, even if it meant questioning his place in your life. Then he told me about some of the things he's been working on, some plans he's been making." She paused, wiping her eyes again. "I think I may have underestimated him." Before Lisa could ask what Tom had told her mother, there was a gentle knock on the door. Pastor Williams poked his head in, smiling warmly. "Ladies, we're ready to begin, whenever you are." Lisa's heart began to race. This was it. After months of planning, weeks of doubt, and years of wondering if she would ever find someone who truly understood her, she was about to marry the man who had changed everything about how she saw the world. The music began as Lisa made her way to the back of the church with her father. Through the crack in the doors, she could see that every pew was filled. Tom's construction crew buddies sat next to her teacher friends. Patients from the rehabilitation center sat beside her extended family. It was a beautiful mix of all the people who had shaped both of their lives. "You ready, sweetheart?" her father asked, offering her his arm. Lisa took a deep breath and nodded. The doors opened, and she began the walk that would change her life forever. The first thing she saw was Tom waiting at the altar in his wheelchair. He wore a dark blue suit that made his eyes look even more striking than usual, and his hair was perfectly styled for once. But what took her breath away was his expression. He looked at her like she was the most incredible thing he had ever seen, like he couldn't quite believe she was real and walking toward him. As Lisa moved down the aisle, she caught glimpses of the faces around her. Some people were smiling, others were crying, and a few looked uncertain, as if they were still processing what they were witnessing. But none of that mattered, because Tom was looking at her with such complete adoration that everything else faded into the background when she reached the altar. Her father placed her hand in Tom's and whispered something that made Tom smile and nod. Then Pastor Williams began the ceremony, his voice carrying easily through the church. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Tom and Lisa," he began. "Marriage is a sacred bond between two people who choose to face life's joys and challenges together." The ceremony proceeded beautifully. They exchanged rings, Tom's hand steady and sure as he slipped the simple gold band onto Lisa's finger. When it came time for vows, Lisa went first, speaking from her heart about how Tom had taught her that love wasn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone perfect for you. Then it was Tom's turn. He had written his vows on a piece of paper, but instead of looking down at it, he folded it up and set it aside. Lisa watched, confused, as Tom turned to face not just her, but the entire congregation. "I had vows written," Tom said, his voice carrying clearly through the church. "Beautiful words about love and commitment and forever. But yesterday I realized there was something more important I needed to say first." He looked directly at Lisa's parents, then at his own family in the front row. "I know that many of you have had concerns about this marriage. I know you've wondered if Lisa really knows what she's signing up for, if she's thought this through, if she'd be happy in the long run." A murmur went through the church. This was not what anyone had expected to hear during wedding vows. "And I want to thank you for those concerns," Tom continued, "because they come from love. You love Lisa, and you want what's best for her. Some of you love me too and want what's best for me. so I want to speak to those concerns directly. Lisa felt tears starting to form, not sure where Tom was going with this, but trusting him completely. Mrs. Johnson, Tom said, looking at Lisa's mother, you asked me once if I could provide for your daughter. You asked if I could give her the life she deserves. He paused, and Lisa saw her mother nod slightly. I can't promise that I'll never need help. I can't promise that there won't be challenges other couples don't face. But I can promise that I will work every single day to be worthy of the love your daughter is giving me. Tom's voice grew stronger. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, he said, addressing his own parents, you've worried that Lisa will eventually feel burdened by my limitations. You've wondered if it's fair to ask someone to take on the challenges that come with loving me. Lisa saw Tom's father wipe his eyes, and her heart ached for all of them. I want you to know that Lisa isn't taking on my challenges, Tom said. She's choosing to share them with me, just like I'm choosing to share hers with her. That's what marriage is. It's not one person taking care of another. It's two people deciding to face whatever comes together. The church was completely silent now, everyone hanging on every word. To everyone here who is worried about our future, I want you to know that Lisa isn't settling for less than she deserves. She's choosing to be with someone who wakes up every day grateful that she exists. Someone who will never take her for granted, because I know how precious it is to be loved by someone like her. Tom turned back to Lisa, taking both of her hands. In his, Lisa, I can't promise you a life without challenges. I can't promise you a love story that looks like everyone else's. But I can promise you a love that's real, that's chosen every day, that sees you completely and loves what it sees. By now, Lisa was crying openly, not caring about her makeup or the fact that everyone was watching. I can promise you a partner who will celebrate your victories, support your dreams, and stand by you when things get difficult. I can promise you someone who will love you not in spite of who you are, but because of who you are. The church was filled with the sound of sniffling and soft crying. Even some of Tom's tough construction buddies were wiping their eyes. Most importantly, Tom said, his voice tender now, I promise that I will spend every day of our marriage proving that love isn't about what you can or can't do. It's about who you choose to be for the person you love, and I choose to be everything I can be for you. Pastor Williams had to clear his throat several times before he could continue with the ceremony. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce. You husband and wife. Tom, you may kiss your bride. As Tom and Lisa kissed, the church erupted in applause and cheers, but Lisa barely heard it. All she could think about was how Tom had just shown everyone in that room exactly why she had fallen in love with him. Not just because he was brave or funny or kind, but because he had the wisdom to address their fears directly and the courage to make promises he knew he could keep. When they broke apart, Tom whispered in her ear, How did I do? Lisa laughed through her tears. Perfect, she whispered back. Absolutely perfect. As they made their way back down the aisle together, Lisa noticed that the faces around them had changed. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by genuine joy and celebration. Tom's vows hadn't just been promises to her. They had been a gift to everyone who loved them, a reassurance that their love was real, thoughtful, and strong enough to weather whatever came next outside the church. As they posed for pictures and accepted congratulations, Lisa's mother pulled her aside. I owe you an apology, Carol said, hugging her daughter tightly. And I owe Tom one too. I was so focused on what might go wrong that I missed what was going right. Lisa smiled, watching as Tom laughed with a group of friends, his face glowing with happiness. He's pretty amazing, isn't he? You both are, Carol said. And I can't wait to see what kind of life you build together. The reception hall was buzzing with laughter and conversation as guests moved from the ceremony to celebrate the newly married couple. Lisa felt like she was floating through a dream. Everything seemed perfect. The decorations, the music, the way Tom kept reaching for her hand every few minutes as if he couldn't quite believe she was really his wife now. They had just finished taking photos with both families. When Tom's best friend Jake approached them, Lisa had met Jake several times during their engagement. He was the friend who had visited Tom every single day in the hospital after his accident, the one who had helped him move into his accessible apartment, and the one who never treated Tom any differently after everything changed. "Hey, could I steal the bride for just a minute?" Jake asked Tom, holding a small envelope in his hand. "There's something Tom wanted me to give you after the ceremony." Lisa looked at Tom curiously, but he just smiled and nodded. "Go ahead," he said. "I'll be right here talking to your Uncle Bob about his fishing stories." Jake led Lisa to a quiet corner of the reception hall, away from the crowd. He seemed nervous, which was unusual for Jake. She'd never seen him anything but confident and easygoing. "Tom made me promise to give this to you only after you were officially married," Jake said, holding out the envelope. "He's been planning this for months, but he wanted to wait until the right moment." Lisa took the envelope, noticing her name written on the front in Tom's careful handwriting. "What is it?" "Just read it," Jake said softly. "But maybe you should sit down first." Lisa felt her heart start to race. She found a chair at one of the empty tables and carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a folded letter and a small silver key attached to a piece of ribbon. She unfolded the letter and began to read. "My dearest Lisa," it began. "If you're reading this, it means we just got married, and I'm probably somewhere nearby trying not to look nervous about your reaction to what you're about to discover." Lisa smiled despite her confusion and continued reading. "The day I had my accident, I thought my life was over. I was angry, bitter, and convinced that no one would ever love me the way I was. But something strange happened during those long months in the hospital. I started writing letters." Lisa looked up at Jake, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Letters?" "Keep reading," Jake said gently. "At first, I wrote angry letters to the universe, to fate, to anyone who would listen to me complain about how unfair everything was. But after a while, the letters changed. I started writing to the woman I might someday meet, the person who might see past my wheelchair to who I really was. I wrote to you, Lisa, months before I even knew your name." Lisa felt tears starting to form as she continued reading. "I wrote about what I was learning about myself, about my fears and hopes for the future. I wrote about the man I wanted to become, not the man I used to be or the man I was afraid I might stay. Every single day, I wrote a letter to my future wife, telling her about my journey." The letter went on to explain that Tom had been writing every day for almost 2 years, documenting not just his physical recovery, but his emotional and mental transformation. He wrote about the days he felt sorry for himself and the days he felt strong. He wrote about his dreams for the future and his plans to build a life worth sharing with someone. "The key you're holding opens a storage unit downtown. Storage Unit 247 at Riverside Storage. Inside, you'll find every letter I've written, along with some other things I've been working on. Jake has the address." Lisa's hands were shaking now. She looked at the small silver key, then back at the letter. "I wanted you to see these letters not because I need you to know how hard things were, but because I want you to understand how much I've grown. I want you to see the man you're really marrying, the one who chose to use his pain to become better, not bitter." The letter concluded with an address and a request that she go there as soon as possible, preferably with Jake to help her. "Jake," Lisa said, looking up at her new brother-in-law with wide eyes, "how long have you known about this?" "About the letters?" "Since the beginning," Jake said. "I was the one who brought him the first notebook when he asked for it. I've been helping him with the storage unit for about 6 months now." "What's in there?" Lisa asked. Jake smiled. "That's not for me to tell you, but I think you're going to be amazed." Lisa found Tom at their table, chatting with some guests from the rehabilitation center. When he saw her approaching with the letter in her hand and tears in her eyes, his expression grew concerned. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, reaching for her hand. "Tom, what is this?" she asked, holding up the key. Tom's face broke into a nervous smile. "Did you read the whole letter?" "Yes, but I don't understand." 2 years of letters? A storage unit? What aren't you telling me?" Tom looked around at their guests, then back at Lisa. "Would you like to go find out? Right now?" Lisa blinked in surprise. "Now? It's our wedding reception." The reception will still be here when we get back, Tom said. But I've been waiting to share this with you for months, and I don't think I can wait another hour. 20 minutes later, Lisa found herself in Jake's car with Tom, driving across town to a storage facility she'd never seen before. The whole situation felt surreal. An hour ago, she'd been dancing to their first song as husband and wife, and now she was on some mysterious mission involving letters and storage units. Are you going to give me any hints? Lisa asked as they pulled into the parking lot. I think it's better if you see for yourself, Tom said, though she could tell he was excited and nervous at the same time. Storage unit 247 was toward the back of the facility. Tom wheeled himself up to the metal door while Jake helped Lisa with the lock. As the door rolled up, Lisa gasped. The storage unit was organized like a small office. There were several filing cabinets, a desk, and shelves lined with notebooks. But what caught her attention immediately was a large bulletin board covered with what looked like business plans, certificates, and photographs. Tom, what is all this? Lisa asked, stepping inside. Tom wheeled over to one of the filing cabinets and opened the top drawer. It was filled with notebooks, each one labeled with dates. These are the letters, he said simply. Every day since my accident. Lisa pulled out one of the notebooks and opened it randomly. The page she found was dated about 6 months before they met. The letter began, Dear future wife, today I learned something important about patience. There are over 600 letters, Tom said quietly. Some are short, some are long. Some are angry, some are hopeful, but they're all honest. Lisa looked around the storage unit again, beginning to understand that this was more than just a collection of letters. Tom, what is all this other stuff? Tom smiled, and for the first time since they'd arrived, he looked completely relaxed. That's the other thing I wanted to show you. Lisa, what do you think I've been doing all day while you've been at work? Lisa realized she'd never really thought about it. She knew Tom did physical therapy and went to doctor appointments, but she'd assumed he spent most of his time resting or watching television. I've been building a business, Tom said. A consulting company for construction sites about safety, protocols, and accessibility standards. Lisa stared at him. What? Tom wheeled over to the bulletin board and pointed to several certificates. I got certified as a workplace safety consultant. I've been studying construction law, accessibility, requirements, and safety protocols. I've been working with 3 different construction companies to help them improve their safety standards and make their sites more accessible for workers with disabilities. Lisa looked at the certificates, then at the business plans posted on the board. There were contracts, client testimonials, and what looked like financial projections. Tom, how long have you been doing this? About a year, Tom said. I started with one small company, Jake's boss actually. They were having some safety issues and wanted an outside perspective. It turns out that someone who's experienced a workplace accident has some valuable insights about preventing them. Lisa felt like she was seeing Tom for the first time. Are you making money from this? Tom's smile grew wider. Enough to support a family. Enough to buy a house. Enough to make sure you never have to worry about medical bills or accessibility modifications or any of the things your mother was concerned about. Lisa sat down heavily in the chair at the desk, overwhelmed. Why didn't you tell me about any of this? Because I wanted to make sure it was real first, Tom said. I wanted to make sure I could actually provide for you the way you deserve. And I wanted you to marry me for who I am, not for what I can do for you financially. Lisa looked around. The storage unit again, at the letters, the business materials, the evidence of a life and a future she had never imagined. Tom, this is incredible. You've built all of this while I thought you were just recovering. I was recovering, Tom said. But recovery doesn't mean going back to who you were before. Sometimes it means becoming someone completely new. Lisa picked up another notebook and flipped through it, seeing page after page of Tom's thoughts, dreams and plans for their future together. You really wrote to me every day before we even met? Every single day, Tom confirmed. And you know what the crazy part is? When I finally met you, you were exactly the person I'd been writing to. All along. The ride back to the reception felt like a blur to Lisa. She sat in the passenger seat holding one of Tom's notebooks, reading letter after letter that he had written to her before they even knew each other existed. Each page revealed more of his journey, his struggles, and his incredible determination to become the man he wanted to be. "Listen to this one," Lisa said to Jake, who was driving while Tom sat beside her. "It's from 8 months before we met." She cleared her throat and began reading. "Dear future wife, today I realized that my accident wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a different chapter. I hope that when I meet you, you'll be able to see that I'm not broken. I'm just built differently now." Jake glanced in the rearview mirror and smiled. That was a good day for him. I remember when he wrote that one. "You've read these?" Lisa asked. "Some of them," Jake admitted. "Tom used to read me parts when he was feeling discouraged. They helped me understand what he was going through." Lisa flipped to another page. "Oh my goodness, listen to this. It's from just 2 months before we met. Dear future wife, I met a woman at physical therapy today who told me about her husband. She said the best marriages aren't between two people who need each other, but between two people who choose each other every day. I want to be the kind of man someone chooses, not the kind someone feels sorry for." Tom reached over and took her hand. I meant every word of that. When they arrived back at the reception, the party was in full swing. The DJ was playing music, people were dancing, and everyone seemed to be having a wonderful time. But Lisa felt like she was seeing everything through new eyes. She wasn't just celebrating her wedding anymore. She was celebrating the discovery of who her husband really was. As they entered the hall, Lisa's mother approached them immediately. "There you are. We were wondering where the bride and groom had disappeared to." Lisa looked at Tom, unsure how much to share. Tom nodded, encouraging her to tell the truth. "Tom had a surprise for me," Lisa said, holding up the notebook. "He's been writing me letters for 2 years. Every single day since his accident." Carol looked confused. "Writing you letters? But you didn't know each other 2 years ago." "That's what makes it so amazing," Lisa said, and suddenly she felt tears starting to flow again. Not sad tears this time, but tears of pure joy and amazement. "Mom, he was writing to the woman he hoped to meet someday. He was becoming the man he wanted to be for his future wife, whoever she turned out to be." Carol looked at Tom with a new expression on her face. "You were preparing for Lisa before you even knew her?" Tom smiled. "I was preparing to be worthy of someone like Lisa. I just got lucky that she turned out to be even more amazing than I had imagined." As word spread through the reception about Tom's letters, guests began gathering around their table. Lisa found herself reading passages aloud to anyone who wanted to listen. Each letter revealed more about Tom's character, his growth, and his incredible journey from anger and despair to hope and purpose. "Here's one from right after he started his business," Lisa said, wiping her eyes as she read. "Dear future wife, today I signed my first consulting contract. It's not about the money, though that's nice. It's about proving to myself that I can still contribute something valuable to the world. I can't wait to share this accomplishment with you when we finally meet." Tom's parents, who had been quiet for most of the evening, approached the table. His father, a man of few words, placed his hand on Tom's shoulder. "Son," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I owe you an apology. I thought you were just surviving. I didn't realize you were thriving." Tom's mother was crying openly now. "All this time, we were worried about your future, and you were building one. We're so proud of you." Lisa watched as Tom hugged his parents, and she felt her heart swell with love for this man, who had faced the hardest thing that could happen to him and had chosen to use it as fuel to become better. Not bitter, the DJ announced that it was time for the father-daughter dance, and Lisa's father appeared at her side. As they moved onto the dance floor, he spoke quietly in her ear. "I have to admit, I had my doubts about Tom," he said. "Not because of his disability, but because I worried he might not be able to give you the life I wanted for you. And now?" Lisa asked. Her father looked over at Tom, who was surrounded by friends and family, still sharing stories and letters. Now I realize he's giving you something much more valuable than I ever imagined. He's giving you a love that was earned through struggle, tested by hardship, and built on a foundation of genuine growth and commitment. After the dance, Lisa found herself standing at the head table, looking out at all the people who had come to celebrate with them. Just a few hours ago, many of these same people had been worried about her decision to marry Tom. Now they were asking to hear more letters, wanting to know more about his business and talking about what an inspiration he was. Tom wheeled up beside her. "Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. Peterson?" Lisa smiled at hearing her new name. "I'm just thinking about how much has changed in one day. This morning, people were worried about our future. Tonight, they're amazed by what you've already accomplished." "Does that bother you?" Tom asked. "That people are seeing me differently." Now, Lisa considered this. Actually, it makes me proud. Not because you needed to prove anything to them, but because they're finally seeing what I've known all along. You're not someone who needs to be taken care of. You're someone who takes care of the people he loves. Tom reached for her hand. "There's one more letter I want to read to you. I wrote it this morning before the wedding, this morning." Tom pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. "I wanted to write one final letter to my future wife, to be opened on our wedding day." Lisa took the paper and unfolded it. The letter was shorter than the others, but every word was perfect. "My dearest Lisa," she read aloud, though her voice was shaking with emotion. "Today is the day I stop writing to my future wife and start living with the woman of my dreams. For 2 years, I wrote to someone I hope to meet. For the past year, I've been writing to someone I was falling in love with. Today, I get to start writing a new story with someone I love completely." Lisa looked up at Tom through her tears. "Tom, this is beautiful. Keep reading," he said softly. "I want you to know that every challenge I faced, every letter I wrote, every business plan I made was all leading to this moment. Not because I needed to prove I was worthy of your love, but because your love inspired me to become the best version of myself." Lisa's voice broke as she continued reading. "I promise you that our love story is just beginning." The letters stop. "Today, but the love they were preparing for will last forever. Thank you for seeing past my wheelchair to my heart, and thank you for choosing to build a life with me. I can't wait to see what we accomplish together." By the time Lisa finished reading, there wasn't a dry eye at their table. Even Jake, who had seen Tom at his lowest points and highest achievements, was wiping his eyes. "How did I get so lucky?" Lisa whispered, looking at Tom with complete adoration. "We both got lucky," Tom said, pulling her down for a kiss. "But now we get to make our own luck." As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Lisa and Tom sat together at their table, surrounded by the notebooks that contained 2 years of hopes, dreams, and preparation for the love they had found in each other. "So what happens to all the letters now?" Lisa asked. Tom smiled. "I was thinking we could start a new tradition. Instead of writing to my future wife, I could write to my actual wife. Love letters about our real life together." Lisa laughed, feeling lighter and happier than she ever had in her life. "I'd love that. But I have one condition." "What's that?" "I get to write back." As they packed up the notebooks to take home, Lisa realized that this wasn't just the end of their wedding day. It was the beginning of a love story that was already more beautiful and inspiring than anything she could have imagined. Tom had spent 2 years preparing to love someone completely, and now they had a lifetime to live that love out loud. 6 months later, as Lisa sat at Tom's desk in their new accessible home, reading through his letters while he worked on a consultation call in the next room, she understood something profound. She hadn't married someone who was limited by his circumstances. She had married someone who had refused to be defined by them. And together they were building a life that was more beautiful, more purposeful, and more full of love than either of them had ever dared to dream possible. The letters had been the beginning, but their real love story was just getting started.